I'm so excited about this. This is obviously a topic very close to my heart, but I wanted to start with a show of hands. How many people in here have been vibe coding lately? Yeah, repliting vibe coding?
Oh, let's go.
All right, what about Sundar last night said he's been vibe coding on Replit. What is vibe coding exactly?
Typically, when you're writing software, you're thinking about the ideas and the business logic for a little bit, and then the rest of it is wrangling the syntax and the code and the APIs. But vibe coding kind of flips this, where you're actually just worried about the ideas and how the software looks. And then the software agent is taking care of the syntax and all the kind of nitty-gritty.
Jazz for coding.
Right?
Jazz
That's right.
for coding, I like that.
Improv plus jazz.
All right, so Mark Zuckerberg has said all of Llama's code will basically be AI generated in 12 to 18 months. Satya has said as much as 30% of Microsoft's code is already AI generated. So, do kids still need to learn how to code? Do we still need software engineers?
Yes, and yes. So I will, I warned Emily, I said I'd come with the spiciest take, which I believe in, which is, I think this day and age, if you think about betting against computer science and coding is like betting against reading in, 14th century. Just feels like, it's such a critical core skill with, and it's not just, computer science is not just using computers, right? It's actually that logical thinking, critical thinking. And if you're going to work with AI systems and AI-generated code, guess what? You'll need more of it.
Mm-hmm. Osi, you run a company called Code with Klossy.
Yeah,
so
I
I'm
get this
assuming
question
you think
a lot.
so, yes, but...
Yeah, no, I would just concur. I think even if you paint the picture to its logical conclusion, right, and say in X number of years, we're going to have fewer people hands-on keyboard producing code, but we're going to have lots of AI agents that we need to orchestrate. To Aparna's point, to be a successful orchestrator, you need to actually be able to think computationally. You need to be able to decompose problems, find the white space, find the problem to solve, think how to create abstractions. Is the agent actually producing the thing that you want it to produce? And so the act of learning to code is actually creating core durable skills that I think will be lasting, even in the age where you're not having tons of hands-on keyboard time.
That said, Amjad, I believe you recently said you're not focused on professional coders anymore. You're focused on people who don't know the first thing about code. So do you agree?
So companies have been, and I think will always kind of be limited by software engineers. Companies want to do more and more things. Every company has a ton of ideas, a lot more than they have software engineers. They have a lot of need for internal software to run the company a lot better. And so Replit, the way we think about it today is to unleash everyone that has a software idea to be able to kind of make it and push it. And we have examples where a product manager had an idea for multiple years and couldn't get engineering resources, finally got Replit and was able to make it and drove tens of millions of dollars of impact on the bottom line.
So should kids still learn how to code, in your view?
Well, I think they should the objective is to learn how to make things. I think learning how to code is the secondary effect of making things with AI.
So what, if the it job of now, or maybe the last 10 years was being a software engineer, what's going to be the it job of the future?
Yeah, I think 2 days ago or a day ago, Sarah Guo dropped an immensely compelling article about this idea of taste being sort of the next skill that we all need to develop, right? If software is democratized, more software is being created, more applications are being created, how do you then apply judgment and taste to actually find the spikes that are going to actually be those sort of breakthrough innovations? And so I think that the job of tomorrow is going to be tastemaker, going to be editor. It's going to be something where you have to apply, again, these human skills of judgment that can't be AI'd away to sort of sort through what is now a sea of more software and a sea of more code.
Yeah, yes, and I do still, as the diehard CS apologist here, I think it's we're underestimating kind of like today, for example, right? When you look at all these powerful models, intelligence, and most advanced intelligence, I almost joke saying we have these flying cars and people are asking them to go to the grocery store because it's just these amazing intelligence and you need to know what they can do So I do think, yes, taste is important. I think imagination, like, and ask high ambition for these models. You can just tell them to do things, and like you should be able to do that. And understanding of roughly how to break down problems, think about like how the world exists, logical thinking. So I would think of that as computational thinking. Now, that doesn't mean like, you'll just you'll study computer science and go write code. That's like saying, everybody who reads should then get a job in reading, right? Like it's literacy, it's the literacy of today is how I think about it.
I think the job of the future is entrepreneur. So in the United States, for the last 100 years, the number of new firm creation has gone down. If you're in Silicon Valley, it feels like everyone's starting a startup. But in the rest of the states, actually, it's become rarer and rarer over time. And big companies have grown much bigger. And so I think what's going to happen is a lot more people are going to be able to start companies. And I think within companies, you're going to see a lot more entrepreneurs. There's people that have ideas at any given company, and finally they'll have the tools to be able to build those ideas.
So maybe these are the jobs of the future, but how many jobs are in the future? We've been talking a lot about this comment that Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, made. 50% of white-collar jobs, he's predicting, will go away in 5 years, 10 to 20% unemployment. I mean, this is like in the near term. Like, agree, disagree?
I have a slightly different point of view, which is I do think, like it's cliched to say, oh, every technology shift, there's new jobs created and so on. But it's also true. Like if you time traveled, Emily, to like, I don't know, 1995, and you said, oh, there'll be a job called social media manager. Like, get out of here, right? Like,
or a content creator.
Or a content creator. So I do think the whole classic Javan's paradox of like, hey, as things get accessible, to Amjad's point, there will be all sorts of new jobs and categories. The jobs that we know as they exist today, I think they'll get resharded and reshaped in ways that, in a way, like it's hard for us to imagine right now, but it will happen.
So is it Lord of the Flies, or we're all lying on the beach eating bonbons, or we're all happy because we're on universal basic income? Like,
well, I think even if we have complete abundance, humans will still play status games. So we'll invent sort of jobs. I remember when VR first came out, one game on it was Job Simulator, where you go into an office and you simulate being. But actually, there's a lot of video games out there right now. You're actually doing a job type of activity, and so I think as people will always invent ways to compete.
So let's talk about what's happening right now, because I feel like we're in this moment of transition, and the dislocation in the near term, maybe it will be more disruptive than the dislocation in the long term. So Osi, obviously it's a 10th anniversary of Code with Klossy. Congratulations. And a lot of your women are now entering the workforce. What are they running into? Like, are they getting jobs?
Yeah. So Carly Kloss started the organization in 2015 based on this inkling that there was a contribution we could make in helping women be retained on this pathway. And as you mentioned, now we have our oldest alumni, for instance, is a woman named Alexandra. She's a VP at Wells Fargo who came through our program. We met her when she was 16. And so we've been supportive of her through that journey. But yeah, I think the speed with which both the sort of economic climate and AI together have sort of softened the early career ladder is alarming. And we are hearing stories from our community of it being longer and harder to find internships, to find that first job. So I think the impact is real and it's felt, and we sort of have these lived experience stories that we hear from our young people. And so I think part of our responsibility as an organization that asserts to support young women on this path is to think about what are the new skills we should be teaching to make our young people stand out in a crowded field where there are fewer jobs.
So what are they?
So I think it's the things we've already talked about, but I think I think there's something to be said for helping these young women demonstrate their skills around decision-making, making trade-offs, critical thinking, communication. And so I think building project portfolios that allow you to demonstrate you can go from 0 to 1. You're a self-taught learner. You can take and integrate different ideas. I think that's a way to stand out to your employer. Show them your Git history, show them your REPLs, show them all the projects that you've done outside of the sanitized education system. I think that's a great way to stand out, but that's our responsibility. We have to evolve as the market is evolving and meet the moment, but we're certainly seeing that impact happen in real time.
I really love this. What is the new resume? Like already it's Git and like REPLs, but I think it's the like full stack builders as we are starting to refer to, right? Like previously, I feel like there were these rigid functions. You're like a coder, you're like QA, you're like design, and you throw things over the wall. And like if you were kind of like, God forbid, into multiple one of these, you're kind of either a unicorn or like a complete like weirdo, right? Or a hard person, and the only option was to kind of go out and do something on your own. I do think that this whole internal entrepreneurialism will come from going from these rigid rectangles and boxes to, I don't know, some amoeboid like permeable things, right? You're kind of like more than just a designer. You're a designer who can code.
Exactly. I mean, it's to your point, Amjad, this idea that as a product person in a company, I can take an idea and see it to fruition. I could be a designer. I could be an engineer and have a concept of what I want the UX to look like and use AI-assisted coding to help me actually produce a high-quality design that I might have been blocked on a designer to do in the past. So this unbundling of this opportunity to allow people to pursue and create in ways that didn't exist before, I think is really exciting.
I think in that world, the sort of primacy of ideas sort of comes back, right? Where, in Silicon Valley for a long time, we were very dismissive of the idea guy. The guy with a lot of ideas who tries to find like the computer science friend to go implement their ideas. Now that person's actually really valuable.
I was at the receiving end of many such things. It's like, so you can code?
The resurgence of idea guy.
I've heard this narrative that even Harvard CS degrees can't get a job. Is that true?
I mean, it's happened. Yes, we have a story in our community of that happening. But again, I think, we're in this place now where it's not just the degree credential, right? You have to demonstrate a posture of lifelong learning. We all got technical degrees on this couch, and we are still learning new things, right? And so it's not just the certificate that you put on the wall anymore. It's how are you demonstrating to your employer and living this value of being a lifelong learner. And so yes, Harvard degrees are wonderful. And also, how do you make sure that you are continually upping your game? And again, meeting the moment of where the talent needs to be. Yeah.
Here's the harsh, but somewhat like liberating thing about this, right? Like I think it is harsh and liberating, which is every few years, you're kind of like, there's a reset, right? And like in fact, it's a little bit of a baggage if you have all these muscle memories and training to unlearn those things.
Yes.
So in some sense, like folks coming out of college today, I say, this is a glorious time to be building. It's just that you have to kind of like get farther than just do your operating systems class and like computer architecture class. You got to be out there building. I mean, this day and age, with all the no-code stuff that we have, I'm also a very happy user of Replit. Like you have no excuse to be still talking about stuff versus doing things.
Exactly.
Just the bar has gone higher.
Exactly.
I think that something needs to be changed about the education system or how we think about it. Obviously, things like Code with Klossy is very important in this new world. But maybe a return to apprenticeship, maybe thinking about even knowledge work as some kind of trade work. You can learn it in months or like a year as opposed to like a 4-year college degree, which obviously all the student debt and all the inefficiencies in that system. I think something needs to be rethought there.
So AI is moving faster than any technology ever before. We've all talked about how the people building AI are not diverse enough, the people using AI are not diverse enough. And now all of these big tech companies have rolled back their DEI policies. Like, what is the impact of that? Like, Osi, are people still picking up your calls? Are they picking them up less?
No, so some people have stopped answering my call. How rude. There's also, the situations where teams have just disappeared, right? So you get the dreaded mail delivery subsystem response because whole CSR teams have been disappeared.
Yeah.
That said, there is a set of what I call the coalition of the willing. So people who are still doing the work despite the headlines that they have needed to change, perhaps for expedience. And so those are the partners that we think we are going to ride out this moment, because I do believe we're in a moment of reflecting on what has been effective and what has not been effective, right? I think that's a fine conversation to have, and I'm willing to engage with good faith members of our coalition to think about how do we need to think about things differently. But I do think it's short-sighted to not think about that, because we're going through a moment of turmoil. And so again, we are in deep partnership with folks like Bloomberg and others to really say we want to be front-footed about this and not be caught flat-footed in 2030 because we got rid of all of our early career jobs and we weren't thinking about how to create a high-performance, inclusive workplace for everybody. Those are the companies that will be the winners in 2030, and those are the companies that are still with us in this moment.
Aparna, what are you doing within Microsoft to, I know how important this is to you, but to make sure that the technology you're building represents the people of the world?
Yeah, and I think this one, we've talked about it a lot. I think two things, right? So one, unfortunately, DEI has turned to be a 4-letter word, and there's no reason it should be, right?
Because it's only 3 letters.
And I do think actually they're we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There are things that we could be doing better. So I do think actually one of the things is more at least preserving the importance of making sure that folks who didn't have access to the technology, at least in terms of using and building, we continue some of those things. So that's one thing. But I think the second thing is there is a big opening now. To Amjad's point, I mean, you can build things, you can be the idea gal, and I was among the, 3 computer science women and a gazillion guys, and and now I feel you don't have to have the barrier of, oh, I need to have had a computer science degree to be able to start building. And that, I can tell you anecdotes of friends of mine who are non-coding. It was one into a fashion startup who's just built a prototype using a different no-code thing, working on her. But she's ready to pitch VCs. That couldn't happen.
We see it in our data that the demographic changed a lot. A lot more women are using Replit today than it was two years ago because of that.
Yes, code with Klossy, happy Replit customers.
Exactly.
All right, so we're out of time. So last quick question. I love to think of my own job as an everyday education, and we should always be sort of reinventing ourselves, as you say. Could each of you give one piece of advice to the audience for this sort of moment in time, whether it's about us or it's about our children or their next generation?
Yeah, I've been trying to invent new ways for me to learn. I have a 30, 45-minute commute, and sometimes I put ChatGPT in voice mode and just say, hey, teach me something, teach me a quantum computing, and then quiz me on it. And it's not perfect. And I think someone, by the way, someone should build this better than ChatGPT. But it's awesome. I can continuously learn all the time, even passively like that.
There's a thing called Replit that might be able to.
My very simple, cheesy thing that I've done, it took under 10 minutes, but I have a browser extension. As soon as I open a new tab, it says, whatever you're going to do, can you use AI to go help you do it better? It just is a reminder, but it works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Osi.
And I would say one of the things that we do in our learning experiences is we teach young people that what you have to do is persevere. And so tying your learning to something you're passionate about helps you get through that learning journey. And so for me, it was I want to generate a Beyonce lyric generator, and I'm going to use AI, right? So it was something I wanted to do, a thing I married the two, and off I go, right? So, but combining your curiosity with that learning journey, I think can be powerful.
I think that Beyonce lyric generator has potential for sure. Thank you for helping us continue our everyday education. Osi, Aparna, Amjad. Thank you so much.